you know, her several years of working in the corporate world. She started her journey as a wildlife expert from Agumbe and has been working in reptile conservation at Chennai to becoming the chief naturalist at an eco lodge near Ranthambore National Park. Ever since then, she has been a prominent figure in wildlife and birding with her more than a decade of experience in reading birds. Today's talk is about getting our hands on experience on Bird Count India, BCI, which has partnered with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology to provide free access to birds of the world for anyone within India. Bird Count India supports listing and monitoring of birds in India, from individuals maintaining their bird list to groups of students or birders monitoring local birds to large India-wide projects to document the abundance and distribution of several species. Also, with this, participants do make a note of your questions, and Mithil would be taking them in the end. Please mute yourself and during the session to avoid any disturbances. If you have any doubts during the session, you may send them in the chat box. And after the session, we'll be open to this question, answer, and discussion session. We're so fortunate to have you here, Mithil. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Simran. Before I share my screen, I would just like to mention that I have a friend on this call. His name is Shashank, and he's going to help me with this session. So if there are any links that need to be shared with the participants, he will be doing that in the chat box. So let me share my screen and let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep my video off so that all of you have a good connectivity. And yeah, just a moment. Simran, can you still see my screen? Is anything blocking it?
Nope, it's visible.
Okay. All right. So good evening and thank you all for setting aside time to join this webinar. My name is Mittal Gala and I work with a project called Bird Count India. It is a citizen science initiative run under a non-profit organization called Nature Conservation Foundation or NCF. And today I'll be talking about how bird watching has contributed to science and conservation. A quick introduction first. As we all know, birds are a wonderful window into the natural world. Firstly, birds are all around us, regardless of where we live. From the middle of the most crowded cities to fields, lakes, and forests, it's hard to imagine a square kilometer of land without birds. Moreover, they are large, colorful, and loud, so we really have no excuse for not noticing them. And part of the fascination for birds is the tremendous variety in size, in shape, in color, and where they live. So even in the driest and hottest of desert habitats, you would still see birds. So in this slide, if you look at the last photo, that's the great Indian bustard, which is again a very the populations have drastically reduced, and there are very few places where they are known to exist. And of course, they show fascinating behavior. Like Simran mentioned about drongo, the story about the drongos, the mynas. So bird behaviors are very interesting, and you could watch especially when they're breeding, you could just keep watching and see what different kind of antics they are involved in. So in this frame, there is a pair of baya weavers. So on the left side, the yellow bird is the male baya weaver, and on the right is the female. Now in the bird world, this is very unusual, where only the male builds the nest. So in most birds, the females or the male and the female together build the nest, but in baya, the female plays no part. And the male has to make this interesting, very nicely, very fine, intricate nest. And the female will come and inspect the nest and check it out if it is if the male has good skills and if the nest that he has built is good enough for her to mate with him. And then it is followed by laying eggs and incubating them. So this is very interesting. Birds are also a commonplace feature in our stories, art, and songs. And here is a painting of Jatayu, who in the Ramayana tried to rescue Sita from being abducted by Ravana. Jatayu is, of course, a vulture. And in this slide on the top right corner, you can see the white-backed vulture, which sadly is critically endangered at the moment. Similarly, there are depictions of many other birds in our art, including that of our national bird, the peacock. There are paintings of birds and even stamps of birds. Let's start by examining what is it that bird watchers do. So as bird watchers, we go out, we go to crazy places, we don't care about the weather, we don't care about the place we are going, whether it is a landfill, whether it's a swamp, whether it's a slushy area, we just want to go be outdoors and we watch birds. We photograph them, sometimes going to difficult situations, as you can see here. We also note down what we see. So this is what bird watchers a few years ago, some still do, but this was a very common thing for birders to do. From now, they would watch birds, they would write down what they see, where they saw it, how the weather was, how many species they saw. They might even draw or sketch a bird. So all these have been noted down in a diary. And when they make a list of the different birds that they saw on their birding trips, it is called a checklist. Unknowingly, bird watchers have been collecting valuable data. What if all this documentation is added on a common platform? And one such free platform is eBird, which is an online database of bird observations, providing scientists, researchers, and bird watchers with real-time data about bird distribution and abundance. It was created by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in the United States, but today many countries are using this platform to record their bird sightings. And in many ways, it acts like an online digital diary where birders can record what birds they saw, where they saw, maintain a live list, and upload photographs and bird calls. Just like we have apps for everything these days, there is also an app to upload bird sightings too. So with the eBird mobile app, uploading bird sightings is very easy and straightforward. So you just have to download the app. It's a free app. And then you download the India Bird Pack, and that's it. When you're out birding, just open the app. The app will automatically take the date, time, and the GPS location. Click on Start Checklist, and the app will show you a list of birds that are likely to be found in the location where you're birding. And all you have to do is enter the birds you see or hear and the count. And when you're done birding, you just have to click on Submit. The submitted list, when you open it on the eBird website, this is how it looks. And you could add photographs and sound recordings and make a checklist into a multimedia list. And this is quite fascinating. A lot of bird watchers want to put photos in their list. And it's a very good feature that eBird has, because when you add photos, it's like an album. It's like going down a memory lane. So 10, 15 years down the line, if you ever want to open a list that has photos, it will bring back all the memories that you had during that trip. Since 2014, a large number of Indian birders have come together on this platform. If you look at the map here, you would notice that it does not have any political boundaries, and all the yellow seen in the map are bird observations. So far, around 20,000 birders have uploaded more than 15 million observations from all states and union territories in India. These also include observations from many bird watchers who have uploaded their 30, 40-year-old observations from their notebook to this common platform. And you can see in South India, especially in Kerala, there is the yellow is very bright and it is very condensed. It's because there's a lot of birding that happens in South India, a lot of birding, especially in Kerala. So we were talking about common myna. So all this data, that all these observations that bird watchers upload, what can we understand with all this data? Let's look at the first aspect, that is abundance of any species. So until recently, if someone had asked us what's the most abundant bird in the country, we would have answered based on our opinion. There was no data or information to answer this question. But now we do. We have the ability to answer this question. So this map is based on a large amount of checklists uploaded over a time period of 4 days during an event called Great Backyard Bird Count. The map here is arbitrarily divided into 7 regions, and from all the lists uploaded across these regions, we could calculate 5 species most commonly reported from each of these 7 regions. If you look closely at the map, you will notice that common myna is there in top 5 in all regions except West here. So this is just a beginning to understand what could be the most abundant species in India, just based on a 4 days data. And every year, if we have more and more data coming in, we would have a snapshot as in which species are maintaining the top 5, which species are going down, which new species have increased and decreased, and things like that. The second aspect to look at is the distribution of birds. Now, it is surprising to know that even for a large and easily identifiable species like this black-headed ibis, no two field guides agree on the geographic range. When I mean field guide, I will probably towards the end of our presentation, I will show you a picture of what a field guide looks like. It is basically a bird book which has birds, all the species of birds illustrated with their distribution map and little bit of information on it. So on the left hand side, this is of a field guide for birds of Indian subcontinent. And the second one on the right, the map is from another field guide called Birds of South Asia. And both field guides show a different distribution of this bird, which is almost the size of a peahen. And how can two books mention different distribution? But when you plot the bird watchers' observations on the map, you get a clearer picture on the overall distribution of this species. So this is how a species map will look like on eBird's website. So on the left corner, the map with purple squares, they are 20 by 20 kilometer grids consisting checklist reporting black-headed ibis. So wherever you see the squares are darker, there are more checklists from those areas that have reported this species. And in a bird book, in a field guide, you cannot zoom in the map. You cannot do anything, you know. It's just a printed stuff, and we don't know how often they get updated. But with birdwatchers observations on eBird, you can actually have a lot more information. You can zoom in. So on the right bottom, you can see the blue and red balloons. These are lists that have black-headed ibis. You can zoom in the list, and when you zoom in, you can also see the checklist. You can click on those links and a checklist will appear. So you can see who has uploaded it, what time of the year, and from which location, and examine all the information to your satisfaction. Migration is one of the most amazing phenomena in nature and also the least understood. But with birdwatchers observations, we can learn a lot more. Again, the maps in field guides do not mention the exact migration range and time for any species, but bird watchers' observations, from that we can learn a lot more. So patterns of seasonal movements are now clarified to a great degree. Now we can see the fine details of migration timing for any region of the country. So here, this is a seasonality chart. This is from Odisha itself. It's not an updated one, but it's a screenshot that I would have took few months ago. You can see here the lesser whistling duck, which is a common duck species, is a resident bird in Odisha and it is seen throughout the year. But at the same time, bar-headed goose, which is a migrant, a winter migrant to India, it is only seen from Jan to March and April to October. As the summer sets in, they are gone. And so this is all these data and all this information insights that we get is only because of citizen science bird watchers. Now this is an animated map of bar-headed goose based on the observations uploaded by the birders. And as you can see here, just have a look at the graph at the bottom right, a moving graph. And as the winter approaches, the entire population of bar-headed goose, global population, gets funneled in the Indian subcontinent. And in the summers, they go back to their breeding grounds. There are 3 concentrations where these birds breed. One is Ladakh, where one population of these geese breed, the central China, and in Mongolia. So we had some idea of their migration, but now with the data available, the picture is much clearer. So all the purple circles are lists reporting bar-headed geese uploaded by bird watchers. So these 2 sparrow-sized birds, non-descriptive birds, are again winter migrants to India. So the green warbler shown in the green here, this is the green warbler here, and it's shown in the green circles. And it's a very, it breeds in a very small area somewhere in the Western Asia. And the greenish warbler, which is shown in the purple, has a much larger breeding range, including the Himalayas. Both species come down in India during the winter months. Again, if you notice the moving graph, you would notice that they spend a very brief time in the breeding grounds and spend much longer time in our country. So if something happens to our country, or if there is a lot of habitat destruction, or if there are changes in their migration route, we don't know what will happen to these species. Where will they go during the winter time? And Amur falcon, some of you might be familiar with this species. It has a very interesting migration journey. So it passes to India in large numbers, especially through the Northeast India, and then it crosses the Indian Ocean here, and then reaches its wintering ground in South Africa. After spending a few months during winter, they again cross the ocean, cross India through Northeast, and then go to Northeastern China, where they will breed. So it's a very small falcon, and it is quite dangerous for a small bird to make journey back and forth from breeding to wintering ground, crossing oceans twice. And you can imagine crossing an ocean oceans would have cyclones, there would be storms, but these birds brave all this. And I find quite fascinating for a bird like this to do that. So we saw how birdwatchers' observations have helped us to understand the abundance, migration of birds. But what about the trends? Are their numbers increasing or decreasing? Or some species being less reported now than in the past? What is their conservation status in India? We need to know this to take the necessary conservation actions in the future. A couple of years ago, in 2019, 10 organizations came together to create a report called State of India's Birds. which provides some answers to these questions. This report looks at the conservation status of 867 species using almost 10 million observations uploaded by bird watchers on eBird until May 2019. The data also allows an investigation into the historical and current trends in India, bird population, current trends in Indian bird populations, which was not possible before. I'm sorry, this report was published last year in 2020. It was released in Gujarat. And based on whether a particular species is declining or increasing or stable in both long and short term, and taking into account the range sizes, 101 species have been placed in high conservation concern categories, 300 plus in moderate concern, and the rest in low concern. So I'll give you a couple of examples just to tell you what high concern and low concern means. So some of the common species show long-term declines. Birds like small minivet, large cuckoo shrike, blue rock thrush, and falcons. So these species, if you are a birder, you might have come across these names or have also seen some of these birds. So here is an example of the species that we talked about, white-rumped vulture. So the distribution map of the white-rumped vulture over the past 5 years shows that its once wide range had reduced a lot. So you can see the drastic decline for this species. The reporting frequency of the species in eBird has crashed since before 2000, which closely matches to the population monitoring projects being done by BNHS and RSPB. The result shows strong long-term decline, which is not surprising. But more worrying is the continued strong decline over the past 5 years. And because of this, the white-rumped vulture is placed under the high concern category in the State of India's birds report. By contrast, a national bird, the peafowl, is doing very well. You could see the graph here, the steady increase of peafowl. It is not only widely distributed across the country, but in recent years, it has spread into new areas in Kerala and also in arid zones of Rajasthan. So its reporting frequency in eBird has doubled since before 2000. And for this reason, this species is placed in the low concern category in this report. House sparrow. So we all believe that house sparrows are declining, and there were a lot of news, rumors, stories, newspaper publications saying that mobile towers are one of the reasons for their decline, and lots of other things. However, when we looked at birdwatchers data, we saw that the population is more or less stable. In certain cities, of course, the numbers have declined, but overall, house sparrows are doing fine. And because of this reason, this species is placed in the low concern category. If we aggregate similar species together, for example, raptors as a group, if you divide them into 4 different categories, woodland, generalist, open, and scavenger, most open country specialists and scavengers are showing stronger declines in the longer term when compared to woodland and generalist species. So for example, woodland is forest birds, forest raptors. I hope you are familiar with the term raptors. Raptors are birds of prey that feed on other birds or other small animals. So this is a serpent eagle, woodland raptors. Generalists are black kites and birds that are also seen in any kind of habitat. They can also be seen in urban areas. Open country raptors are one which are usually found in open countryside scrublands like this black shoulder kites and scavengers. So if you look, raptors in general, all raptors are in decline, but the open country and the scavenger C and D are declining at a very faster rate, and the declines are also much clear and stronger compared to the other 2 raptor groups. So far, all these trends and analysis has used checklist data. But what about the media, such as photographs and audio recordings uploaded by bird watchers? How are they useful? So over 1 billion photos and sound recordings are publicly available for examination for plumage patterns, subspecies, and boundaries. So you could also, if you want to do a project on subspecies, if you want to know a certain species, how different it looks, or how different the migration patterns are, or breeding patterns are in different areas of the country, say Odisha and Bangalore, you could just look at the sound recordings, the media recordings, the seasonal charts, and birdwatchers observations, and come up with a small project of yours. So on to our last section, how to get involved. To start with, as a bird watcher, you can start uploading observations to eBird. And if you have lists made in your notebooks from previous years, do consider uploading them too. If you are new to birding or would like to take up this hobby, then there are a series of articles that you can that can get you started in birding. These articles, you will find them on Bird Count India website. I would also recommend to have binoculars depending upon your budget. Do look for either 8x21 or 8x40, 42 binoculars to start with. And field guides. If you look at the first picture, early bird pocket guides, these are really handy pocket guides. You can get them on the early birds NCF the portal, the link. I think Shashank will post the link from where you can get these pocket guides. And they are available in Hindi and English. It has a list of species, especially of common birds and certain forest birds also. Then there is a field guide, Collins Birds of India. This is just one field guide, but there are of course other options. And Merlin Bird ID app. So recently, Cornell Lab of Ornithology has come up with this Merlin Bird ID app. It's a free app that you can download, and it is really helpful to learn about new birds, to identify new birds, and do try it out. So once you download the Merlin app, you will be asked to install a bird pack. So you just have to select India bird pack. Once you have selected the bird pack, and if you see a bird you're unable to identify, there are list of questions that Merlin will ask you. And once you have answered those questions, like the size, the color, it will give you a possibility of the birds that you might have seen in that area. So it's a good way to start with bird ID. And we hope we are able to convince you to join this citizen science endeavor to document and monitor Indian birds by logging your observations on the eBird platform. And please do explore Bird Count India site for further resources. If you're interested to learn more, please feel free to email us at skimmer, SKIMMER, skimmer@birdcount.in. Sorry, some slides have repeated. So these are again more field guides. We can also share this slide, or we can send you a list of bird guides. And I think that's it. I would like to talk about Bird Count India. It's an informal network of non-government and government organizations. We partner with formal and informal birding groups across India, including groups that are on Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, and we encourage the use of global listing platform eBird. You'll find bird ID articles, upcoming events and campaigns, birding challenges, profiles of bird watchers on our website. And we have more than 200 volunteer reviewers that help with the data quality part of eBird. That's it. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box and we will try to answer them. And those who are in somewhere near Bhubaneswar. Do make a note on Facebook. There are Bhubaneswar bird walks, a group that regularly conducts bird walks, and they often take new people for birding. I think due to the COVID reasons, the walks have stopped, but whenever situation is better, I think you can contact them if you're interested to go on any of the bird walks. So that's it. Thank you, and over to you, Prakhar and Simran.
Thank you so much. And so I had a question. Okay, maybe I'll take a while. And in the meanwhile, you all can just type in your questions, and we'll gradually take them up. Or if you want to share something, just raise your hands, and we can unmute yourself.
Oh, there is
Okay,
one
so
thing. There is one thing I forgot to mention. So we have there is a newsletter called The Flock, and Shashank has shared the link, the bit.ly link, The Flock. Shashank, can you send that again? If you're interested to be updated with the latest nature, wildlife, birding related events in India, then please subscribe to The Flock. Sorry, Simran, you can go ahead.
no worries, no worries. So okay, the last thing you said, about us getting involved and early birders and how to begin this birding 101. So that was a great one. And there's also this thing that a lot of us are just the backyard bird count thing. So have you guys done something to promote it more? Because I think I got to know about this backyard bird count thing after it was done, and I was like, okay, so it's again done. Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, so this Great Backyard Bird Count is a global event, and in India it started in 2013, but every year it's just getting popular and popular. There are more bird watchers joining for this event. It's a 4-day event where bird watchers just go everywhere, and then they upload a lot of checklists and lot of observations. And we also make it, India as a country with the number of species and checklists, we always are in top 5 species in the when you look at the global countries who participate in this event. We are always in the top 5, both species and checklist wise, and it is popularized on our Facebook groups, on our website. And as I said, if you join the Bird Count India newsletter and the Flock newsletter, you will get updates about it. In Odisha also we have state coordinators. So every state we have coordinators who help us to make this event popular. They organize talks, walks during this event, and they introduce new people to birding.
Okay, so the Facebook groups. Have you okay, I've not seen.
I will ask Shashank to find okay, wait, he's not on Facebook. I will find the Facebook group and type it in the
Okay,
chat.
you can do this thing. Just send us the links, and all of this links we'll again compile it and send it to the participants.
Sure.
That would be a good one.
Sure, that can be done.
Okay, so just quickly going back to the questions. Okay. So Vinayak asked, what is the reason for this stronger decline in open countryside raptors, considering that area under agriculture is increasing or it's stable?
We don't know the reason, because it could be multiple reasons. It could be because open country raptors often look eat other smaller animals or birds. So we don't know if it is if it has to do something with the insect population, or whether it is a different kind of pesticides that are used in agriculture areas that could be killing the small mammals like rodents or hares or whatever these birds feed on. We don't know if there has been any changes in the landscape itself. So we don't know the reason. So we can just tell that these are the indicators that the raptors are declining. But further studies need to be done to understand what are the factors affecting this decline. Simran, you're mute.
Yeah. Vinayak, I hope this answered you. Uh, yeah. So Usha asked, why is it that the weaver birds, Baya, make their nests in the male palm tree but not the female one? That was this.
Oh,
Okay, nice observation.
so I am not sure because I cannot ID the male and female palm tree. So that's wonderful if you can, Usha. But I don't think there is a preference as such. I think the only criteria is that the nest should be safe enough. So they often make nest on thorny trees or palms or trees which are at the edge of the water, because I think one of the reason is when predators like monitor lizards and snakes, when they try to climb a palm, a tall palm, it will give them enough warning that there is a predator trying to reach the nest, so the birds can warn each other or mob the snake or mob the lizard. And so that is the reason why they build nest in palm trees or thorny trees, but I don't know about the male female tree.
So maybe Usha can write you back with a lot of
Yes.
other observations and you can just sit with it. Prajakta asked, why do some species show color morphs and how does it affect the colors in the offspring? Are the colors of color morphs inheritable? Um,
So yeah, some species do show color marks, and it could be mostly it is related to breeding. So there are different kind of different species have different ways to attract their mates. So some birds will have these beautiful colors. Some will have some really crazy dance moves, or some will even offer food to their mate. So to attract mates, they do have colorful. They do have colors, but there are certain birds, like for example, woodpeckers, barbets, kingfishers. They have these bright colors. Orioles. They have these bright colors throughout the year, but that also helps them to camouflage in their habitat. Say like barbets, they feed on fruits. So when they are on trees, they blend with the green color. Or for kingfishers, they often nest in holes, cavities. So when they are nesting, that's the time when they are more vulnerable. So by nesting in a hole, their colors, I mean, they are not visible. So that's one advantage for them. So yes, and young ones do inherit the colors, but maybe not in the juvenile stage. They don't need that intense bright colors when they are growing up, because they might attract attention. So yeah, that's the thing. I hope that answers your question.
okay. Now Harish asked, can we upload multimedia content through the eBird app or we have to upload it through Bird Count India website only? Or,
Uh,
why is
so
it?
so there is a eBird India website. Once you cannot upload multimedia photos through phone. I mean, you can't use it through the app. But if you have the photos transferred on your phone, then you can go through the web portal, through the web browser, and you can upload it. And you don't have to upload it through Bird Count India website. It's ebird.org/India. So you need to register. You need to open an account with eBird, and once you do that, you can start uploading your checklist through the app. And later on, you can edit the list by opening the list on the website and then adding multimedia. So there are a lot of webinar recordings and videos available on how to use the app, how to add photos and sound recordings. I will also send that link of our webinars that we have conducted for eBirders.
Okay, sure. Srinidhi asked, what is the prevailing hypothesis for the presence of fork-tails in drongos?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry. Can you repeat that question?
She asked, what is the prevailing hypothesis that these drongos have a forked tail?
Okay. I'm not very sure on this. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Maybe helping in aerodynamics. I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. because they are very swift flyers, and many a times the shape of the tail also helps them in flight. But I'm not sure if that's the hypothesis. I need to read up on it.
Okay, so now I think we have come to an end on the questions in the chat box. If you want to share your, experiences, like I said, just like for the last 9 minutes or so, unmute yourself and we can sit and talk. A nice conversation.
There's another question.
Okay, yeah, Deepjyoti asked, is there any change in migration route of any bird observed in the past few years? I mean, not like a minor change, but a complete country change in a country. And to this, Vinayak answers Siberian.
Yes, Siberian cranes were one of the birds where the migration route got changed, or they never, I think the last cranes were seen in late 90s or something like that. But other than that, it's just too soon to answer that question. We need to do a long-term monitoring to answer that question, because this citizen science in India is fairly new. It just started 2013, 2014 onwards. But another 10, 15 years down the line, we may be able to answer these questions.
We need more citizen sciences for that.
Exactly.
Also, so about the Amur falcon that you said, I think last year only I read that in Northeast, the population there, citizens there have been hunting these Amur falcons, and they have, and that has caused huge reduction in their count. So
that has stopped for a while now. There is again a link which I would share on Conservation India, where when some bird watchers, when they saw that there was a huge massacre of Amur falcons in certain regions in Northeast, they were horrified, and soon the photos were shared in social media. The photos were published in newspapers, and it got a lot of attention, and it also put pressure on the government. And then there were NGOs and activists and researchers who came together, and they worked with the community, and they made them understand how this can be changed. So now the people over there who used to be hunting Amur falcons have become conservators of these falcons. So they are now very happy when they see the first falcon arriving. There are also tourism in those areas have also helped and given these people livelihood. But I would not talk more about it. It would be nice if you all can read that brilliant conservation success articles on Amur falcon.
yeah, sure. So any more questions, or you would like to unmute yourself and just talk something? I had another question that so pigeons are something we see around us a lot of times, and pigeon, I would say, seems like a harmless bird to me. Not a lot of predative instinct, but I don't know what is its adaptation that enabled its urbanization here along with the crows. I don't see a lot of birds urbanizing, but over the years, pigeons have somehow just gained this strength, foothold here in all of the urban clubs.
Yes, I also want to add to Simran, like where I live in Delhi, so I am not able to see any birds from past 10 years or 15 years except pigeons. So there are pigeons all over Delhi, and not even Goraiya, that one used to be that is a state, but I guess so. I'm not able to like watch or see any birds except pigeons.
Yes, because birds that we are very resilient to adapt certain habitats. So pigeons are actually called rock pigeons. And the story is that rock pigeons used to live in rocky areas. And like every other wild species, they also had a nesting season. They had a specific breeding season, and they would nest only during that time, because nesting takes a lot of efforts. The birds have to find the right food, the climate should be right, the resources should be right. Now, when urbanization started, and of course, people started feeding pigeons, the pigeons had nowhere to go. They started getting adapted to humans around. And since they were getting food and water throughout the year, they also started breeding throughout the year. So there is no breeding season in pigeons, no one specific breeding seasons for pigeons. Now they are breeding throughout the year. So that's how the numbers went up. And of course, in India, we have this whole thing of feeding birds and feeding pigeons. So when you get everything for free, food, stay, then why would you leave the hotel?
And can we say that maybe pigeons are being a little invasive to other birds?
Yes, I would say that they are a pest, and there are studies which have shown that they are also responsible to a lot of diseases, human diseases that we get. And yeah, I think the first thing people need to understand that, see, you don't need to feed birds, for the sake of good karma. Even if you
Yeah.
just don't do anything, birds will learn to survive on their own. The minimum interference, the minimum better. I mean, the more better it is. So yeah.
Okay, Srinidhi again asked, has there been any study done to look at the effect of usage of pesticides in agriculture on birds?
Not sure in India if anything like this is done. I'm not very sure in India, but in other countries, yes, there have been studies done. People have also studied how it affects the pesticide affects the insects, the bees, and also the birds.
So, Srinidhi, did that answer you? Also, I would say, okay, so I don't really want to wrap up. I mean, it's going fun. And so, yeah, that's it, I think, from my side. What kinds of effects have been observed? Srinidhi again asked. Okay.
Srinidhi, I think you will have to search for certain articles. I don't have what do you call it, easily available answer for you, because I myself have to read about it. I know that I had read about it in some journal, but it was not from India. But if I do find out, I will definitely share the link with Simran and Prakhar so they can pass it on to you.
Okay, so before ending, how about you tell us, the hardships, I would say that, or maybe, the hesitance that was there when you wanted to shift from your corporate job to wildlife? I mean, okay, so I being a fourth year student, I am not sure like where to go, PhD or some job. I mean, I don't know. And or even if, doing something and then stepping into another field, just, give us some courage.
I think you will find the courage when I think that your guts will tell you when it is the right time to move. So for me, it was, I had a lot of advantages in the way I was just tired of a corporate life. I didn't have any ambition to go anywhere. I didn't want to study further. I didn't want to do my master's or PhD. I had two brothers, so, and my mom, I knew that if I moved away, my brothers are there to look after her. If I would have been the only child, then it would have been a bit difficult for me to make the change, but I had nothing to lose. So I wanted to test it out. I wanted to test if I could live in a different region, if I make a move, if I migrate, if I say so, if I can say that, what would happen? What is the worst that can happen? I would probably not like the place and maybe come back. I always had a home and a family, but I wanted to test it out, and it worked well. I liked my first job that was in Agumbe. It was a rainforest, and at that time we didn't have any internet. We didn't have cell phone network. It used to rain 8 months in a year, and it was one of the wettest place in Karnataka. And so it was really nice to just be in the nature and having no connection with the outside world. I mean, we did have volunteers, but it was nice. Like you could walk in the forest, see the birds, look at the animals, even things like frogs and snakes and lizards, which used to be on leaves and in the ponds. It was just fun looking at them. And there's so much to learn in nature. And you forget about stress and all the anxiety that you have.
Okay, a dream life, right?
Yes, yes.
Congratulations on that. Okay, have you visited Chilika? Like, I think our group did a
No, I
birding session
haven't.
there in Chilika.
I
Prakhar was
haven't.
there. I couldn't
I
go.
I want to. I want to. It's been in my list for the last 2 years. In fact, we've been asking Geeta that once the COVID situation gets better, we do want to go to Chilaka, and we do want to. I also want to see the Arivata, the mass nesting, turtle nesting. So two things I do want to do.
You can come and visit us.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
Like exactly,
Definitely.
we like before COVID, we had a established birding club and birding group, and we used to go on bird walk, nature walks, like
Oh,
every Sunday
nice. Oh,
uh,
how wonderful.
near our campus, near transit campus, and like our institutes provided us binoculars, so we used them, and every Sunday early morning, and even once we visited Silica too, and like benefits of government institute, so it helps.
Amazing, amazing. I hope you guys continue once things get
it
better.
won't be just continuing. I think it will be a huge one now that
Yeah.
we'll be having. I think our campus, permanent campus near the coast, and it will be a full throttle one.
Yeah.
Like now we have more resources, more people, a huge, I would say, family.
And now we
Yeah.
have you too, like you will be
Yeah.
joining us.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, just feel to drop a message anytime you want anything. And of course, if you want to get connected to birders in Odisha, there are some amazing birders there. So we would be happy to share their contacts also.
Yogesh writes that so I think the previous one is a comment, and next he writes that he has a group in Mumbai where every Sunday they visit some place or the other for birding. So when any one of you here from Mumbai, if you want to, connect to him, just feel free to connect,
Very
Yogesh. I
nice.
think Yogesh, you can send your contacts or some group links if you have. People from here can connect to you, or we can send it in that mailing list of ours.
Yeah, Bombay being city has amazing places to see some of the really interesting birds. So I did start my birding in Bombay. This was maybe 15 years ago. I wasn't interested in birds that much, but I was interested in reptiles more. But I do remember my first paradise flycatcher in Bombay, Sanjay Gandhi National Park.
So I think we are ready to wrap up. People, if okay, just make a note of Yogesh's contacts. This is the Forest Expedition Group, and
Yeah, and
know,
one thing, I think some of you had questions, and I said I was not able to answer, but I would find it out. So please write to me on this email ID, and so that I remember. I didn't find a pen next to me to write down your questions. So please write to me, and we will try to find out the details.
okay. So with the vote of thanks, thank you so much, Mithil, for this amazing session, and we
Thank
learned a
you.
lot from you.
Thank you
And
so
thank you
much.
everyone for participating. Yeah. And I hope you loved this as much as I did. And okay, birds, another story. Let's meet again, once again.
Yeah,
It's my
sure.
honor to host you guys.
And thank you so
And
much. Thank you for the enthusiastic participation. And I think it is brilliant to see, even more than 10 people joining this session, because usually After 5 o'clock, you don't want to do anything. You've been working on your computer and then you just want to take a break after 5 p.m. Work is over, studies are over, but you guys still came and spend an hour with us. And I really enjoyed interacting with them. So thanks, Prakhar. Thanks, ISER Behrampur team, the organizers, the participations, and thank you. Thank you for this.
Thanks a lot, Ma.
Thanks a lot.
Okay,
That's so
bye. See you next time.
Bye bye. Very good night, everyone.
Good night.
A good month, a huge month